So, you want to be a cosplayer?
You exploring? Yeah? Hey guys, welcome back to So You Want to Be a Cosplayer. It's been a minute since I did an episode, and it's for good reason. I've been thinking about this episode for quite a while, in particular trying to get this guest on for quite a while, and we finally made it work, which is great. Cosplay Chris has been such an inspiration to me and a bunch of other people, and today I got to chat with him about his how he became a cosplayer and a creator, and more specifically, more about mold making and casting, which has been something that he's been doing for quite a while. As well as we talked about some 3D printing, which is a really cool topic, and how these two kind of intermingle and mesh. So I hope you guys learn a lot. I hope this helps you kind of get into the hobby. It definitely makes me a bit more encouraged, a bit more bold. Maybe braver is a better word to try some casting and mold making and then casting. I think that's the way it goes. So anyway, enjoy this episode because I really did.
Hey guys, welcome back to So You Want to Be a Cosplayer. Today's episode is super cool. I have been waiting for this episode for quite a while. As I've mentioned before in other episodes, I've made a schedule of who I kind of wanted to talk to, like, potential guests, potential topics. And this one was one of the ones I was most excited for. It features, which is I'm still kind of baffled over because I've been a fan for such a long time, an amazing cosplayer, an amazing creator online. You may have heard of him. His name is Cosplay Chris. So I'm going to bring him on now. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thanks, man. Thank you for having me today.
Of course, yeah, and especially this early in the morning for you, because I think it's like a nine in the morning.
Mate, I'm an early bird, so like my wife and I have been up since 5. So we like to early risers and get stuff done.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. You'd messaged me earlier. You're like, I can, by the way, we're still good, and I was like, it's like 5 o'clock in the morning for you guys. Oh, that's right. Yeah, you guys are probably up a bit early, so. No, it's really cool. Yeah, so just for those who don't know you, which they really should, if you wouldn't just kind of introduce kind of who you are, kind of what you do when it comes to the cosplay craft, as well as pitch one of your new projects, just to kind of get people more, introduced to you, that would be great.
Yeah, man, of course. So my name's Chris Stanley. Online, I mostly go by Cosplay Chris. I've got the Cosplay Chris YouTube channel, which, believe it or not, revolves around cosplay. Not just cosplay, but also like I have a custom collectible series where I'll take like a cheap action figure, repaint it, and do it on the cheap, do it on the fly, and make it something that look like you'd pay several $100s for. But yeah, with the cosplay stuff, man, just try and teach all aspects of cosplay. Obviously, I don't cover everything. There are other people that do that and do it really well online. So yeah, like, molding, casting, 3D printing, incorporating the help of friends who are able to really help out with a certain build. And last year I started a second channel just called Chris Stanley, and that just is all the talking videos. So I keep the build videos separate from the talking videos. And it's just like movie reviews, pop talk, entertainment reviews. I really love delving into screen use props and the history of X, Y, and Z. And yeah, just keep all the build videos on the main channel, man. So I've been fortunate enough to work on some feature films. I got to work on Thor: Love and Thunder when it filmed here in Sydney, which is cool. And yeah, just with what I've done, it's taken me around the world. So it's been a wild ride.
Literally around the world.
Yeah.
No, it's really cool. And you currently have a very cool project, currently in the Kickstarter phase at the moment, and it's like a Batman project. Do you want to talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, so we're currently crowdfunding a fan film at the moment called Gotham Noir. So idea is to play Batman. We're building the suit at the moment, myself and some very other talented artisans. And yeah, we're crowdfunding at the moment. It's early 1900s. We originally were going to go with Gotham by Gaslight, but then we kind of moved it a bit forward in time. So yeah, we're really looking forward to hopefully starting on it and making it work and seeing it through. So yeah, that's where we're at the moment. We've got just under 2 weeks to go with the Kickstarter. Yesterday we revealed the cowl, which was fun.
Yeah,
and got some great feedback. Thank you, man. Yeah. So yeah, that's where we're at. Just kind of, doing pre-production and just still getting stuff underway regardless of the Kickstarter still being live.
No, it's awesome. Yeah, I've been very excited when you've taken the cosplay side of things, and I know you're a very active guy, and then turning that into the short film stuff. Even the cinema, like the little video bits that you do to kind of introduce a character, like your Pirate Batman, Samurai Spawn, which we're going to talk about a little bit. And then, of course, you've got the Uncharted short film that you were in, all of your Wolverine stuff as well, which is really, really cool. So it's always exciting to see costumes, not just on a con floor, but brought into a movie space as well. Because, I mean, that's really where it all started, right? Watching all those movies that we love, Star Wars, Predator, that kind of thing, and bringing that and trying to do that at home. And kind of what we're going to talk about today is taking those exact same processes and bringing them into a consumer is the wrong word, but I can't think of it, a consumer space, and making it, not for a feature-length motion picture, but just for fun, just for the appreciation of the character. And what those processes, one of the biggest ones, is mold making and casting, which ever since I started watching you, has been a big part of that. Now, I do want to bring up one cosplay in particular, because I think you do multiple strategies of the mold making and casting, which is your Samurai Spawn.
Yep.
One of the wildest things I think I've ever seen you mold and then cast was the I don't know if it was a garbage bin or a laundry bin, but it was that cross-hatched material that you then put for your thigh guard area, like whatever the battle skirt, whatever that is. And I remember that going, oh my goodness, I need to start looking at garbage bins more often, because like that's a great texture. How did I not think about that? But yeah, so this video in particular, guys, I want to introduce, because it can seem like you need a big budget and you need to know, all these really crucial pieces, and it may seem larger than life. Chris makes it incredibly approachable, in my opinion. I've definitely been tempted to do it on more than one occasion, just based off of his own videos. So to get started, Chris, though, let's talk about how you got into it, because I think a lot of people are going, where do we start? So if you wanted to dive into that would be fantastic.
Yeah, man, of course. So when I was very young, 12 or 13 years old, I was fascinated with Freddy Krueger and Freddy Krueger's glove and stuff like that. And I started, researching how to build one, because they were online, but they were so expensive, and like I couldn't afford it with my pocket money. So, I got a baked beans can, a Diet Coke can, one of my mom's floral gardening gloves, and constructed this just, weird interpretation of Freddy's glove. But it was a start. And I think what we're talking about today is you just have to start. It's not going to be perfect right off the bat. And if it does, and if it is, I'm very jealous. And then, just kind of went from there, refining the glove building techniques, getting the proper materials, the copper, the brass, sourcing the leather gloves, like really honing in each glove from each Elm Street, because they all differ apart from, the first two where they use the same glove. After that, it was a different glove with each Elm Street. And then during my high school years, I started getting into sculpting and just pushing clay around and making the old school gypsum plaster molds and latex monster masks and stuff like that. Like that's like the base where you've got to start. And then I got into, silicon work, like making a silicon mold and resin castings, your part A, your part B, and pouring it in and, get a slush casting out. And then 2013, I did my first proper con, like cosplaying as like a Nolan inspired Robin with some kit bashed eBay motorcycle armor. Like I just went nuts on eBay one day, bought a whole bunch of stuff and just like scrapped it all together, like Star Wars style. Like, just go to a junkyard and like find it, make it work, make it look aesthetically pleasing. And then the following year, I did my first proper bat suit, which was like a hybrid of Batman Begins and Earth One Batman, and a bit of like a soupçon of Arkham Batman. And then, like 2014, I started the main channel, and it just went from there, doing cosplays, showcasing how I did bits and pieces, not really getting into the full tutorials just yet. Then I started the custom collectible series, which again was ideally was just going to be a one-off. I just saw a Hulkbuster in Toys R Us one day. I'm like, man, that'd be so fun to repaint. And I did it, and then it blew up, and I'm like, there's potential here, because back then it's a lot different now, and there's not as much variety in store because everything's mostly online now. Back then, like, you could go to Toys R Us when Toys R Us was still around. They just have an array of stuff, Big W, Kmart, you know, little mom and pop toy shops. And I'm like, I could repaint that. So it was great. And then, yeah, man, ever since then, it's just been a bit of everything. Always trying to challenge myself with different cosplays. But you are right. Samurai Spawn is probably the most mixed media cosplay that I've done. So it's funny you mentioned it. I actually really need to get it out of storage and kind of do a bit of maintenance on it, just make sure everything's fine. Because most of the big things are in storage at my parents' place in these big Tupperware containers. But when it came to the thigh decorative guards, that was my mum and dad's dirty laundry basket.
Was it a laundry basket? Yeah, that's what I thought.
It was from Kmart. And I remember looking at it and I'm like, that's interesting. But if you take a look at Deathstroke from the CW series, they use the exact same pattern on his chest armor.
Yeah.
And
I wonder when I saw that, I'm like, I wonder if they did what Chris did, or if they 3D printed their own thing and, you know, whatever. But it was like, I immediately recognized it.
It was a spot on match. So I'm like, yeah. So I took a mold of it, and I've still got it today. I actually also use it. I turn it upside down and use it when I'm fiberglassing. I pour resin on the back and get the fiberglass matting and embed the resin, and then put it on the piece. And then when it's done, you just peel off the dried resin, but then you flip it back over and it's the mold for Samurai Spawn.
Oh, so it's flat on one side.
Yeah, it's just a flat like block mold. It's like a big piece of silicon. And you just poured the urethane on. Did a few tests with like brush powders and stuff like that you pre-brush into the mold. And it worked out so well, man. I'm like, that's just and again, it's just that using what's around you. It's like John Wick. Use what's around you and make it work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that was a great example of that, and even with the custom collectibles thing, my wife for sure kind of grumbles now because of that series. I just go into the toy aisle now. I just look around and go, yeah, I could paint that. Oh, but if you like break off the arm and you just bend it in like this, it's a problem. And thankfully, it's all just wishful thinking. I haven't actually gone and done it. I've done it a few times. I have a Buzz Lightyear, one of those very like dollar store quality Buzz Lightyear toys from Lightyear, the movie. So it's like the updated look. And it's like one of those. One day I'm gonna sit down and do it, because Buzz Lightyear was like my first superhero. And so to have like a actual like action figure that looked really cool, I had to do it. But okay, so yeah, let's dive right in. So we've talked about casting something that you find, like, I'm just gonna say, in the wild. So let's talk about that. When it comes to start, because I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of finding what product for what thing unless you want to talk about it. Because I know that there's tons of Reddit, there's tons of articles out there about, like, if you're going to use this, if you're going to mold this thing, use this type of molding resin instead, or latex or whatever. How do you approach that? How do you approach, okay, so I've got this thing, the side of a bin. How do you choose what to use to make that first casting?
So you have to look at what it's made of first. Okay. So like that thing is from Kmart. It's injection molded polypropylene. So literally all I really needed to do was just give it a wipe with isopropyl alcohol to get rid of dust and all that. Just like most times out of 10 it is fine, but you never know where there's one contaminated area where there might be an oil buildup of sorts from, us grabbing it to take it to the laundry to pour the clothes in. Just a bit like the oils on our fingers can be quite like it can turn copper brown. That's how how strong it can be. And we produce it. It's crazy. Like back in the day when I was making my Freddy gloves, I used to rub my forehead and rub the copper, and that would
really
brown it. Yeah. And at one point I ran out of oil on my face and I'm like, God damn it. I'm just, so yeah, you look at whatever it is it's made of, because silicon can clash with certain things. So if your piece is made out of, say, latex, you probably shouldn't mold it with silicon because it will inhibit how the silicon will cure. So when I handle silicon, I use, what are the gloves called? They're not latex. Nitrile. I use nitrile gloves. Because if you use latex gloves, especially when doing life casts and all that with silicon, it can stop the silicon from kicking in certain areas wherever you've touched the silicon and you're putting it on a person's face or whatever, a sculpture. So if you were to mold something that's made out of latex, you'd seal the hell out of it, like layers of sealer, just so there's a barrier. And then there have been cases where I've sculpted something. So back in 2012, I sculpted a Freddy Krueger bust in Roma clay, which has sulfur in it.
Right,
yes. Yes. And I didn't know that at the time. I'm like, this is great. And Roma clay is great to work with, but it emits sulfur. And then when I went to mold it in silicon, the sulfur fumes just... And I remember it was cold. And when I was molding it in silicon to do the first print coat, I'm like, it's cold. It's going to take a while. Several hours later, it's just still goop. And it's actually like coagulating and like melting off Freddy's face. I'm like, and I called Barnes where I get all my stuff from. I told them, they're like, oh, you can't put silicon to sulfur. And I'm like, what do I do? So I spent a day getting all this uncured silicon off this sculpture and using iso alcohol. And I had to do the layering of a clear coat so that there was a barrier. I managed to get the mold. There were some areas where sulfur was just still coming through, but I made the mold. But again, it's a lesson. And I'm of the mindset, there are certain times where if you're not failing, you're not doing it right. How are you going to
very true.
learn? But yeah, so going back to like the washing basket, it was just like a quick clean, isopropyl alcohol, make sure it's dry, and then you put up your clay wall, and under the underside, obviously, because if you don't put anything under there, the silicon's going to go straight through. So I just got duct tape, a shitload of duct tape, and just it was like the crudest thing ever. But I'm like, I just need a panel. That's all I need. I just need a flat mold and just clay walled it up and put tape under it and sprayed some J-Wax and then just poured the silicon in and like, that's it, man. And she's still with us today, that mold.
That's super cool to hear. But like, I think what's very interesting, like you were saying, you got to start somewhere. If you're not failing, you're not learning. All of this makes me remember the behind the scenes stuff for Star Wars, for basically any Stan Winston behind the scenes clips where they're like, yeah, we couldn't figure out how to stop this thing from moving. So we we just jammed a pencil into it. And then, the pencils was in the film because we needed to stop it moving or something like that. Like just because it doesn't sound professional doesn't actually mean it's not professional. Because in some cases you just need something to work, and if duct tape works to stop the silicon from going through the dirty laundry bin, that's what's going to work best for you. So use it, So also jumping off of that, would you say, because we're hearing you talk about the gloves, and I'm nodding along because I know the story because obviously I've been watching you for quite a while. For those of you who don't know, go find the videos where Chris is talking about the history of the Freddy Krueger gloves. It's a very, very cool, I'm not a Nightmare on Elm Street fan, but I love the history of props and movies and stuff. And it's a great, great video. I think it's actually a couple of videos, isn't it, at this point?
Oh, dude, I've lost count. Like it's an unhealthy obsession at this point.
So we're hearing you're making your props from a very small beginning, a glove, right? Great place to start, honestly, when it comes to A, replicas, B, prop making. It's something that you can fit on your hand and you can feel very tactilely this doesn't feel right or this doesn't look right. Would you say when it comes to making molds and casting that someone should start small, or that they should start whatever feels right to them? What would you recommend that? Because I know, for example, in 3D printing, I've talked to guys who 3D print, and they go, where you start nowadays is basically just how big your printer is. Like, you could technically start an entire Iron Man 3D print as your first print if you've got the printer space. Is mold making and casting very similar, or would you recommend starting small?
100% starting small, man. And that's just because of how expensive these materials can be, especially your silicons and your resins. And I get it. If you want to just right out the gate, just gun ho, go for the big one, because I've been there before, and unfortunately it hasn't worked out sometimes. I'm like, oh my God. It's like, you know, when they recommend, you know, something to put on your skin, do a test patch. It's like that, man. Like, just if you, let's say, like, I don't know, if you're doing like an Iron Man helmet 3D print, but you want to make a mold of it because you want to cast it in different material that's not like PLA or ABS or Ninja Flex or something like that, you know, you'd print a little Iron Man helmet, do a little mold of that, and cast it in the products you want to cast it in. Even though it's small scale, it's still going to read the same, just as a smaller scale. And you'd be like, that works, or that doesn't work. And I think that's like, you know, the price definitely does come into it, because it can get quite expensive. Like, if you're a master of EVA foam, which, you know, the more you work with it, like, you can just, the possibilities are endless. Like, I've seen your Green Goblin. That's mad. Like, that's awesome.
Thank
what you
you.
did there. With the scales.
Oh man,
yeah, it was very, very cool, man. That you can just get so creative because it's so cheap. Like, here, you just go down the road to Bunnings Warehouse and get the yoga mat foam squares that kind of puzzle piece together.
Yeah, most of my foam is dollar store foam, right? Like, it's super cheap. So yeah,
there you go, man. So yeah, absolutely, start small, but don't lose sight of what your end game is. But also be, as hard as it is, especially, you know, if you've got a very busy brain, like myself, where you want to do everything at once or everything yesterday. Start small, be methodical, really plan it out, and plan out the process, because the patience will definitely pay off in the end. Like with the Gotham Noir cowl, you know, I just wanted to get it done and I was excited, but I'm like, no, like, really think of the engineering underneath the cowl, because that's either going to make or break how you look ultimately in the end when you show everyone how it looks.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, as frustrating as it can be, but an exciting frustrated at that. Start small, be methodical, and just have a game plan. Have a game plan, and don't lose sight of what the end game is. Yeah.
No, that's really good. I think because I think with 3D printing in particular, because, you know, going back to Samurai Spawn, right? So you've gotten the mold of something you find in the wild. And then you also have, I apologize, your friend who designed the belt buckle. I don't remember his name.
Henry Creations. Yeah, Henry, man.
Yes.
So Henry did the belt buckle, the skulls, and the face.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Because you're right. Okay. And with 3D printing, you now don't have to sit like the Stan Winston guys or Weta Workshop guys and get good at clay sculpting anymore. If you have a 3D printer, you can 3D print an Iron Man helmet, and then you have an Iron Man helmet, right? Or you have a Spawn face, and you just have to work out the sizing. So I think learning at a small scale is a great example. Would you say? So you mentioned that you had sculpted the Freddy Krueger head, and then let's say the Spawn helmet, or the Samurai Spawn face. Would you say that one? I know maybe that was a bad example because you didn't end up having a little bit of mess with the Freddy Krueger sculpt. Do you prefer to use a clay base as your mold making, or a 3D print? Does that make sense? I know that came out garbled.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think ultimately, and traditional sculpture will always have a place. Like, no matter how good 3D printing gets, how user friendly it gets, a traditional sculpture will always have a place, especially for like traditional prosthetics. If you want to enhance someone's facial features, you want to add mass, size, weight, all that, you need traditional sculpture. But nowadays, a lot of effects companies are incorporating the hybrid approach, which is traditional sculpture, scanning it, refining it. And they're also 3D printing the molds, which is impressive. So a lot of Brendan Fraser's prosthetics for the whale were 3D printed, and the molds were 3D printed. But they had a quick turnaround. I forget the gentleman's surname, Adrian. He's a fellow Canadian. Him and his crew did all those prosthetics. And they had a really quick turnaround, man. But the work speaks for itself. Like, it just moves so well on screen. And their main goal was to have it how gravity would affect a body like that. And it just turned out so well. But that was incorporating traditional sculpture, but a lot of 3D printing. So I prefer to mold a 3D printed piece, because sometimes, like sealing up clay, you can lose detail, stuff like that, especially water-based clay, because sometimes the water-based clay doesn't want to play ball with the silicon because of the moisture. Right. Whereas if you've got like an oil-based sulfur-free clay like Chavant or like Monster Clay, I love Monster Clay to pour into a mold. You can melt it down and you can pour it in a mold. If you want to retool something or refine something or do something different to something that you've made a mold for. So I always love molding a sculpture that's been 3D printed, and also having that rigidity. That way things can't get bumped or distorted when you're molding it, because there are times where you could be brushing on the silicon and you could push too hard and a little part of the sculpture shifts a bit. Whereas if you have a rigid 3D printed piece, just pour the silicon on, go for it, and it'll always stay the same.
Right. Okay. No, that's really, really great. With 3D printing being so readily available, there's a ton of, I'm sure Australia is the same way, but there's tons of maker spaces out there now where you essentially just rent machines that you may not have, up into the big ones. Like, they're getting into the big ones where you can 3D print car doors into maker spaces, which is wild. So yeah, I would just kind of, with that in mind, giving people the option. Now, we've talked about price, and we've talked about accessibility and everything. In other videos, and including this one, I'll always say use what you can afford, what you feel most comfortable using, and that's the right thing for you. However, would you mind breaking down what you would consider a really good starter brand? I'm not paid to talk about it. I don't know if you are, but if you could, provide everybody just like a really beginner brand that you can find online to start with this kind of stuff, that would be fantastic. I know that I would like to do what I would like to know.
As in brands of like pieces, materials and stuff like that.
Yeah. Like so we were talking about the Part A, Part B resin pours, or the silicon.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. What would you? Because you mentioned Monster Clay, and I know Monster Clay is pretty popular. So that's a really good one. PLA is pretty popular. So let's more getting into the cast, like the cast making materials there.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the resin of choice for me usually, which is like opaque, so not transparent, is called Supercast from Barnes. So Barnes is the Australian version of like Smooth On and Reynolds, or BJB. So much so, Barnes actually uses BJB products, and they just relabel it with some of their stuff. Yeah. Like down the bottom in the fine print, it'll be like, this is a BJB product. I'm like, I did not know that. So yeah, when it comes to like my resin of choice, like an overall like general purpose resin, it's Supercast, and Part A, Part B, 100 to 100. You've got a decent amount of working time. Like if it's like 100 degrees Fahrenheit outside, you better make sure you're in a cooler place to really make sure you get coverage if you've got a big mold, or you really just want to take your time to make sure it picks up all the detail of whatever you're casting. Silicon, again, like Supercast, my go-to like all-round workhorse silicon is called Pinky Sil. I think the Smooth On equivalent is Mould Star or something like that. It's just a platinum silicon, Part A, Part B. Just again, it's like the workhorse silicon, much like Supercast is the workhorse resin. If I need something that has a bit of transparency to it for a casting, I'll use what's called Bee Queen, which dries like a champagne transparent, but I'll add like a little bit of so I now and then I'll do like a Ben Affleck mouth plate for people to display in their cowls, their Batman cowls. So I'll do a layered transparent casting. So, and I'll start off with little bits of flesh and add bits of red for like capillaries and stuff like that. And when you pull it out of the mold, it's a great blank canvas. Then you go in, do your washes, the lips, the stubble. So yeah, you can really make it you can go from transparent to opaque, but also at the same time, it has this flesh-like quality to it, if that makes sense. If you're casting something you want to have a bit of hyper realism to it, you'd usually use Bee Queen with a little bit of like flesh tint, because that tint just goes a long way. You just need like a drop or like a little because I use barbecue skewers, cheap barbecue skewers, to mix and put tint in. So a little bit goes a long way, man. So those are my two. When it comes to like spray paint, and like, you know, you guys have it there, I'm pretty sure, like Rust-Oleum, like from whether it's like
my base is just built with Rust-Oleum stuff.
yeah, like a craft store, something like that. Rust-Oleum's great. Rust-Oleum, that like any spray paint sometimes will clash with a certain plastic, like polypropylene. Like polypropylene's like that one kid that just doesn't want to play with anyone.
Seriously,
it's just. Yeah, it can be a real hassle. So yeah, those are my main go-to workhorse products, man, for what I do like day to day.
Now the just kind of bring in some context. Someone goes on your YouTube and wants to look. The workhorse latex you were mentioning, is that the stuff that we're seeing in your Gotham Noir cowl build? It's that pink bubblegum pink stuff. Is that what that is?
That's it. That's Pinky Sill. Now, instead of using resin this time, we're using a flexible urethane for the cowl. So that's called F140, which means it's a 40 Shore urethane. And then, like, I'm sorry, man, I should have had stuff here to show you behind me. It's all in front of me, and I'm like, yeah, I've got the cowls in front of me, down here in front of me. So I cast the one you saw in F140, and then also it's okay, thank you. My wife just came in to offer help. It's okay. And then F160 on a test cowl that has a bit more rigidity to it. So it snaps to your, not snaps, but it's more like a helmet. Because what I've found with the F140 cowl, it's a two-piece cowl like Christian Bale's. And when you turn your head, it's great.
The neck and the head, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Sometimes when you want to turn away, this part wants to stay put. So it kind of like pulls at you like that. You look a bit silly. Whereas the F160, which is a 60 Shore, which is more rigid, it kind of just wants to move with your face, because it's almost like a shell, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Foam is the same way. There's the different densities of foam. Some are better for armor because it's basically like solid, almost insulation, like pink insulation foam. And other stuff is like yoga mats. So it's much more easy to cut, make designs with. So no, that makes sense. Absolutely.
Yeah. And once you get the hang of working with urethane, it's a bit of a different beast to resin in terms of doing a slush coat. There are certain areas on the mold where I wouldn't say it beads away like water on skin, but there's sometimes uneven coverage, and that can just, like, it's really sensitive to contaminants in the mold. And you could have a pristine, sealed, released mold, and it still might be certain, mostly high points on the mold. It doesn't, the urethane just wants to, and you've really got to keep working it until it gels to the very last minute or second when it will kick and it just won't move anymore. You've got to, like, whether you get a gloved hand and you got you sometimes you've got to get amongst it and just stick your hand in and wipe it around to make sure there's even coverage, or get an old, like a disposable chip brush and just move it around just so there's even coverage, because that will then pay off when you demold and you put it on. You're like, this fits great, this moves great, this sits flush, because you put in the extra work to begin with.
Yeah, I've heard with urethane that Batman ears in particular are a bit of like a Macbeth when it comes to the casting, just because it for whatever reason, just it doesn't, like everything else on a cowl may work, but the ears are a big pain. Is there some truth to that?
And like even the people that made the screen use suits will tell you there was like a featurette for Batman and Robin, and one of the ladies, the costumers, was talking about doing the foam injection for Clooney's cowl, and she goes, "We had so much trouble with the nose and the ears because you just get bubbles, and you can't like you can patch it as well as you can, but it's never going to look as clean as a fully formed cast." So like what I did with the Gotham Noir cowls is I got a tiny little disposable hobby brush and mixed up my batch, then got a bit and just jammed it at the tips of the ears and the nose and brushed it in and moved it around. So I just forced urethane at the tips of the ears. And then you slowly pour in either sides to let it leak down into the ears and slowly fill up. Because if you go ham and too fast, that's when air gets trapped.
Right. Yeah.
And also, you also get a brush and you brush it around, especially on the stitching of the cowl that the design we've gone with, because intricate detail like that, you can get air bubbles, and it even goes back to when you're molding the piece. You got to make sure your first 2 print coats are great, no air bubbles, gets in all that beautiful detail, because that's at the end, it can make or break the look.
Right. Yeah. If something looks washed out or like soft when it should be sharp, that kind of thing can really draw the eye. I'm assuming, at least just looking at, like I said, I follow Stan Winston and what I workshop on Instagram, and every once in a while they put the behind the scenes stuff. And I always love the featurettes on DVDs or Blu-rays. Just going back and watching that, which is really, really cool. And then obviously you're saying you learn as a hobbyist, you can actually learn from that on your own, looking back and seeing the people who were the professionals, we'll say, and what they had to deal with. And you go, oh, that's good to know. I'm going to get into the nose on mine. So that's really, really good. Now, this has been fantastic. However, I think there's some terminology, and terminology is always an issue, which is why I have like entire videos for foam crafting terminology, cosplay terminology, and it's never an exhaustive list. So I know, for example, what working time is. I know what a slush coat is, just watching your channel, watching other people's channels. Would you mind just kind of, you could take a second and think about, 5 of the most popular or commonly used terminology within mold making and casting that someone may not know if they're not in that world and watching it, but they really should know.
Yeah, man. So like you just said, slush coat. So we have our mold and we want to make a casting. We pour the first batch of urethane or resin in, and you move it around so it's getting all that coverage. That's called a slush coat. So the Gotham Noir cowls took 5 slush coats. So, when it dries, pour the next batch in, build up that thickness. Kick, when it starts to kick, is when the viscosity starts to change, when it starts to set, and it starts to go from, say, a milk consistency to honey, and then eventually rock. So that's when,
that's really good. Those are good metaphors. That's good.
There you go. Yeah. So especially with urethane, when the urethane starts to go from something a bit more liquidy to a syrup, a tough syrup, that's when you've really got to start working it around, because you definitely do have to time it right. There definitely is a science to it. And oh god, okay, so slush coat, kick, shore, like SHORE, shore hardness means the different hardnesses and softness, I guess you could say. So F140 is quite rubbery. Then you go up to F160, 180, and the higher the shore, the more rigid it's going to be. There's still going to be a bit of flex, but there's still a lot more rigidity than the lower shores. Like you go to F125 and it's just like proper rubber, like loose, like dangling rubber. Like a lot of stunt props.
I was going to say stunt stuff is probably like not the hero stuff, but you want something that can move and twist and bend, and you're not really worried about it ripping or shattering.
Yeah. Like, can I grab something?
Please. Yeah, no, absolutely. Go for it.
So what I have here. So this is the mold for the Gotham Noir chest emblem. And the batarangs look the same, just a bit smaller. So ideally, if you wanted, like, let's say this is for a batarang, and you wanted to do a stunt batarang. So for the batarangs, we do 2 castings and glue them together. So either side. So this is just a flat block mold. So you do 2 castings to glue together. You do it in a high shore urethane, but if you want a bit more of a body in there, you could on one side embed like an aluminum flex like piece, like strip, something that flexes like a spring steel piece, where it's going to be hidden and embedded in the urethane, but it still holds its shape a lot more. But you can like literally like slap it and it will flex and it won't injure the actor. So yeah, something like that.
When you pull back to throw it, it's not going to like wilt in your hand.
That's it, yeah. Or if you are just doing a shot like that to cut to something else, you'd probably grab a hero or a solid resin piece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure I understand. So the higher the shore, the looser it is, we'll say. The lower the shore, the stiffer it is. Would that be fair?
Other way, man. Yeah. So
other way.
Lower the shore. Okay. Yeah, lower the shore, the more like F25, 125 would be like that. Like it's just so rubbery.
Oh, okay. So the F1 is getting me. I thought it was 125, so I thought it swapped around. So you're saying F1 space 25?
Just 125, yeah. F125, F140, F150, 60. I think it goes up to 80. Whereas 80 is pretty rigid, but still will have a bit of flex.
Cool. Okay, so lower the number, the more rubber, the more flexible. Obviously, you still have to be careful. I think everyone's bought a really cheap Batman cowl, and they've gotten the rips, and they've gotten the Joker, the Chelsea smile going up here, or the nose rips, or something like that. So, no, that's great. So yeah, no, because I watch your videos and I watch other people's videos, and so slush coating and all that kind of stuff is very, I understand that, but I also know I've talked to people and I'm like, yeah, you have to do like slush coat, and they're like, when did slushies come, part of this? Is it blueberry flavor? Is it raspberry flavor? Okay, so yeah, we've talked about some very good starting materials and some North American equivalents. We've talked about terminology. We've talked about starting small, which I totally agree with, especially because you're talking about, for example, the slush cast, getting to know how that is going to move inside your mold. I'm assuming, like you're saying, it'll play the same on a small mold as a larger mold. You just may have a higher volume of liquid in it. But you'll still get to know how fast it works. How does it grip? Is there a problem? Like you're saying, the high points is, am I going to have to get in there with the paintbrush and get the ears and the nose on my Batman cowl? So that's really, really good. Are there other tips and tricks that you've picked up along the way where you went, if I had only known how to do this when I first started, that you can kind of bequeath to us, people who are interested in, so that we don't have to make those mistakes? Or is it a case of it's probably better for you to learn on your own? Because I know that is also 100% a thing when it comes to the hobby space. Sometimes it's very valuable to learn something on your own.
Yeah, there is always a time and a place to learn something on your own, but there is by no means no harm in asking for help, reaching out. Like I do it all the time, man. I interviewed Christopher Nelson on my second channel a couple of months ago. He won the Oscar for Suicide Squad, and he created, along with Vincent Van Dyke and their talented crew, all the masks for the new Halloween trilogy. Chris is, he's a force to be reckoned with. Very, very talented man, and just a very chill dude. It's very refreshing to see someone with such talent. And he even said, he goes, I still reach out to people this day. He goes, I'll call Greg Nicotero or Rick Baker and be like, I'm stuck on this. Can you help? So to hear the big guys be like, yeah, we reach out and get help all the time. Like, it's not like once they learn everything, they know everything. You are constantly learning. I don't care how big you are, how talented you are, how many Oscars you have. The beautiful thing about this craft is you never stop learning, which makes it so exciting.
No, absolutely. Yeah. The foam crafting world is very similar. Except there's not many movies that I know of. Like, for example, I can guarantee you blood sports armor was not EVA foam. So that the hobbyist side of the craft foam stuff is definitely we're all in this together. But yeah, kind of jumping off of that, are there any tips and tricks that you think beginners should know? Kind of assuming that they've read the forums, they've read they've watched the YouTube tutorials of the guys who are going through step by step. What are some things that you think should still kind of get hammered home for beginners when it comes to mold making and casting?
Again, take your time. Take your time, start small. If bouncing back to like foam armor, really just get your templates right. Do a lot of R&D, get some pieces of poster board, cheap poster board from news agents or something. Like when I did my Witcher armor, man, the amount of templates and R&D, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, even just for the shoulder pads I went through just to get the dimensions right. And it won't cost you much if it doesn't work. That's where you'd be like, okay, this doesn't work. I've got to retrace it. That's fine. It's not going to break the bank because like I've just got some cheap poster board or just something lying around that could be a basic shape. Like I used to get cereal boxes and use them for my templates for Freddy gloves back in the day. You turn it inside out and I'm like, that's great. It's that perfect cardboard thickness where you can test wrapping it around your finger, both upper and lower parts, make sure it moves right. And then you try the copper version. So I think be as hard as it is because you're going to be excited. You want to get it done as soon as possible because you want to ride that dopamine hit of this is working, this looks great, this is exactly how I envisioned it. Make sure your templates are right from every angle. Like if you want to finish it, look back, step back, look at it and be like, I nailed it. Make sure your templates are right. Start small if it's your molding, your casting, and experiment with how different materials behave. Because each material is different, unique, and is going to behave differently. Some don't want to play ball as well. And that's where, you can watch YouTube tutorials, like not just from me, like there are plenty of other brilliant channels out there, like Brick in the Yard Mold Supply, which is one of the inspirations for me starting the main channel. Working with silicon, painting silicon. Painting silicon is like, you need a doctor's degree for that. That stuff is hard to paint, let alone urethane. Urethane it's hard to paint. The way I've painted the Gotham Noir cowls over time, like it's not going to be how it was when I first painted them. And that can be for screen use pieces, man. Like they've got the budget to make like 20 bat suits. Whereas what I love about cosplayers, they make one and it's designed to withstand an atomic blast. But a screen use bat suit, you put your arm up like that and it rips.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a great photo I have. And I have lost it. I think it's somewhere on a hard drive somewhere, but it's like cosplayers are seamstresses. They are like entire costume departments. And I do it on my dining room table. And like I know people who do that, which is, it's wild when you like dig into it. So I was in my head, I was saying like, are you reading my diary? Because you're talking about templating, and templating is a big thing. It's the one thing that I'll stake my name to that I'm quite good at. The poster board thing in particular, like sort of cardstock, something with a little bit of rigidity, so you don't, you're not accidentally pulling it and it rips, that kind of thing.
Yes.
No, absolutely. And I'm guessing with mold making and casting, 3D printing can allow you to do a lot of experimentation because you have something, like you're saying, it's solid. You don't have to worry about the clay breaking or chipping or pushing off or anything like that. And you always have this Iron Man helmet, just to kind of keep the example, over and over and over again, right? That's fantastic. Those are some really good tips and tricks. Now let's, we've done some serious talk about theory and everything, but let's get a little bit of fun here. What would you say is the most fun you've had making a mold and then casting it?
Ooh.
I know it's like the worst question to ask, but it's always like the number one question people want to know. So
yeah. Man, I think probably a couple of years ago when I molded a part one Freddy print that a good friend of mine, Sean Dabbs, did. So I got a scan of Robert Englund's live cast who played Freddy, and then I was
Mhm.
originally going to sculpt it by hand, but because I hadn't kept up with the art of sculpting, I'm like, I won't do this justice. I'd rather have someone digitally
Mm.
sculpt it. I've got a library full of reference. Sean's the man because Sean knows how to get forms down pat, especially with actors, like not just monsters, but actors. And he did an incredible job. And I just remember being so excited molding it because I envisioned how I was going to paint it, and just with the painting to complement Sean's incredible work, that was definitely it. And like I find molding very therapeutic, as labor intensive as it can be, whether you're doing a fiberglass shell or like a plaster bandage shell.
Mhm.
You keep thinking of that end result when the casting's done and it's cleaned up, it's painted, and you step back and you're like, that's like what a journey that was. So yeah, I reckon the part one, Fred, but also the Gotham Noir cowl, that was really exciting because and that was just like last week. Because yeah, it's a big deal. Everyone loves a new take on the cowl and stuff like
Seriously, yeah.
that. And yeah, so probably the part one Fred and the Gotham Noir cowl, man.
I knew Nightmare on Elm Street was going to make it in there. That one wasn't a surprise. But no, that's really cool. I thought you were going to say when you the Pirate Batman. I thought that was something, but I don't think you mold. I don't think you made a mold of that one. I think that was actually
So Pirate
right.
Batman, the base
Yeah.
cowl was cast in latex by my good friend Ben Ball of Benable FX, and that was an Affleck cowl. We were doing Affleck cowls
Oh,
at the
was
time,
it?
and I
Oh
wanted to
man.
upgrade the Pirate Batman cowl from the resin one to something a bit more flexible, but keep with the design of the stitching. So like I always, Affleck's my favorite Batman. Unapologetically, I
Mm-hmm.
love Affleck,
Mm-hmm.
and I love the
Mm-hmm.
suit. I think that DOJ suit is like the best bat suit put to screen, and I will fight that till the end. Like in terms of comic book, Dark Knight Returns, tank Batman,
Yeah.
Affleck. And I'm like, I want to use that base. I love that. I love the shorter ears. I've always been a fan of the shorter ears. And then yeah, I just got one of Benny's cows and just took the neck off, and then yeah, just did the pleather paneling, the stitching, and then the bandana tie
Gotcha.
at the back. But that did come from a 3D print. We had a DOJ cowl resin printed, and then we molded it.
Mm-hmm.
Benny, because Benny specializes in latex cowls, so he took a urethane master from the
Mm-hmm.
mold with soft foam. So you squish it and you pull it out, but you've still got a master. And
Interesting. Okay.
that's what he makes his seamless plaster molds with. Because again, squishy foam, you can just grab it like a sponge, pull it out.
Yeah.
And
Ah.
I did urethane. No, I did resin displays for a bit, but now that I've got more into urethane, we actually, again, it's just outside here. We've got a new version DOJ cow. We're halfway through molding that has silicon on it. We've got to do the shell mold next because again, Benny wants to do wearable cows, and I want to do Affleck displays again with Affleck's face in the cowl.
That's right. I was going to say, sorry to interrupt, but you were talking about Queen Bee, that product. I was going to recommend to
Mm.
people, in particular, your Nightmare Batman display. I know because
Oh yeah.
I think that was one of the videos where he talked about the facing because he's got more stubble in that one.
Mm.
That in
Yeah.
particular, guys, if you guys YouTube that one in particular is a great video showing the different process and like you were saying, adding the little reds and pinks and everything. So if you guys are interested in watching that process, that one in particular is one I'll recommend.
Thank you, man.
So, all right, we've talked about ones you've had the most fun with going forward. Is there a project that you would love to do? You know, you had all the money in the world, you had all the time in the world, and you wanted to make a mold. You wanted to sit down and bury your head in a month for a month or two, sculpt it, make a mold of it, and cast it. Is there like a dream mold that you'd want to make?
Oh.
Again, one of the worst questions to ask, but the one that everyone wants to know
No,
the answer
it's a good one, man. Like it's good when you can stump your guests. It's good. Make them
to.
think. Oh, so like very predictable. Anything
Can
Freddie or
I ask?
that.
Yeah, I was going to say. So,
Yep.
Freddie, I would love to see because I don't know what I remember the new Hellraiser movie came out, and you love the skin, the way that they use the skin as the clothing and the leather jackets this time, or the leather cloaks. I wondered if you were going to do that, especially like say the Chatterer, someone that's super iconic within that world. Have you ever been tempted to do something like that?
I wouldn't say tempted to do like something like life size. I love Doug Bradley's look in the first two Hellraiser films because of obviously it's the same production. So both 1 and 2 have that combined feel. And then by part 3, it became very like they moved from the UK to Hollywood. But I would love to have, I would love to have like a life-size Pinhead from 1 or 2, because not only is the makeup great, but the costume design with like that leather S&M look was just so twisted but beautiful at the same time, with the work that's gone into all that. Not just Pinhead, but like, you know, Chatterer, Butterball, the female Cenobite, they're all really cool. Man, like a dream one would be like the ultimate bat suit, I guess, whether I wear it or I make a display like it's in the vault in the cave, just something really unique. But that's kind of what we're doing with Gotham Noir. We're creating a very unique bat suit that's borrowing elements but also keeping to the time period where the film is set. So I guess you could say the dream is kind of coming to fruition with that. You know, it's definitely something
Batman, which is very cool. Yeah, the cowl in particular, and I you know, I kind of when I saw it, I kind of went, oh, that's Pattinson, Gaslight. There's also one you did, and I'm not sure if it was the New 52 or the Rebirth one that had just a bit more of the structure kind of here on the side of the temples. It was really cool to see all of the work that you had done on all the other ones put into this very unique and original one, where you can point out as a fan of Batman and kind of go, oh, I see they did this and they're pulled from that and everything. Same thing with the chest piece shot that you guys put out, the buckles on the side of the body. I've always wanted to see that done in live action, so it is very cool to see that coming to fruition.
I don't know if you recognize those straps at all.
I need to pull up the image, but no, I don't think I do.
If you look at Tom Hardy's Bane, those exact same make and model ones are on his vest.
Are they?
So those are vintage quick release parachute straps. And I had got them for a previous cosplay when I originally was going to do Bane. I'm like, I can't commit to this. I don't want to shave my head and like, you know, get like ridiculously huge.
So I 5,000 calories into yourself every day.
Yeah. So I just had them in storage. And when Cameron Dossier, who built that bodysuit for Gotham Noir and has done an incredible job, I sent him down some pre-existing bodysuits that I had for him to kind of take apart and look at, because he's an upholsterer by trade. So he had access to all the heavy duty machines, the beautiful fabrics. So he knew exactly what he wanted to do with the bodysuit. And I threw those quick release straps in with what I sent down to him, because he's in the state below me, as well as Sonny Selena, who built the cat suit for Gotham Noir. So both brilliant artists. And yeah, I'm like, dude, I feel like we just can incorporate these straps somehow because they're vintage. I don't want them sitting there. And that's what Cam did. He put them on the obliques there. That we do want to incorporate it with the belt system that we're going to have on the suit, to incorporate them. So it's just not there for show, if you know what I mean.
No, yeah, there's a bit of a function and utility to them, which is all, as someone whose self-proclaimed style is taking comic book fantasy, and that, like, Goblin's the best example, because I'm not sure if it's been twisted a little bit, I think, just because how I made it, but the body armor for Goblin is actually the Justice League Batman tactical armor. It's a foam template of that. So it's this perfect blend of utility and function, and also just so superhero. It's so Dorito shaped. Maybe not on me, but otherwise it's so Dorito shaped.
You wear it well. I remember I was walking my dog this morning. I was just having a look through, and I'm like, yeah, you wear that well.
Oh, thank you very much. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm. That's the number one thing people say when they see me in the goblin suit is because I'm also 6'3". And so
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God, you're huge.
massive goblin. Yeah, yeah. With the hood, I get pretty tall. So yeah, no, it's pretty cool. No, thank you very much. That's good to hear that it's not just aesthetic as well. So yeah, no, again, thank you very much for sitting down with us. Again, guys, we've had a great conversation when it comes to mold making and casting. There's also tons of resources out there. As you know, I think Chris does a great job of walking people through and doing the tutorials and everything. But there are people whose like jobs it is to like A, B, C part 1, C part 2, C part 3 on these kind of projects, and they're all out there. And as Chris and I have said, if you have questions, reach out to your friends, reach out to people that do this thing, and whatever that is, whether or not it's craft foam, it's sewing, it's mold making and casting, and I am sure we'd all love to help one another. So go ahead and do that. Chris, where can we find you on social media?
So on YouTube, either Cosplay Chris or Chris Stanley. So again, the Cosplay Chris one's the build videos, and then Chris Stanley, it's movie reviews, prop talk, entertainment news. You know, if a new teaser image drops of Corin Sweat in the Superman suit or Jackman as Wolverine, you know, stuff like that. Because I love nerding out over like new costume reveals and stuff like that. And on Instagram, it's just Chris Stanley official. So it was Cosplay Chris back in the day, but I changed it to that to kind of just like broaden the bit of everything.
Well, yeah, I think that was also before you had that second channel, right? So you were kind of broadening the spectrum of the content you were making and everything. So yeah, absolutely great. And I will have the Gotham Noir Kickstarter link as well in the description below.
Thank you.
So definitely go ahead and take a look at that, guys, because this is I think it's a very momentous occasion when it comes to the Batman fandom and short film stuff. So we're very thankful to have you guys working on that, because it's a great team you guys got down there.
Anyway, for sure, man. Yeah, Daniela and Sarah, they've done great work. We've done great work in the past as well. So you know, it's a winner for sure.
100%. So you guys, you know, I don't do a great job at closing these videos. However, Chris, would you do me the honor? And I know I totally am surprising you with this question. Could you end this podcast with your Geeks and Geekettes closer for Cosplay Chris?
You got it, man. Hang on. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Yeah, we're good.
Noah, thank you so much for having me. Guys, thank you so much for watching. With that being said, wherever you are in the world, please have yourselves an absolute cracker of a day. I hope you're well. Hope you're happy. Be merry. Be silly. And until next time, Geeks and Geekettes, please always remember, cosplayers do it best.
Okay. Week made, month made. That was it. Okay. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more cosplay content.